One of the most documented and widely discussed examples of a ghost is the case of the Brown Lady of Rainham Hall. Rainham Hall is a country house in Norfolk, England, and the legend of the Brown Lady has been part of its history for centuries. The Brown Lady is said to be the ghost of Lady Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Sir Robert Walpole, Britain's first Prime Minister. Lady Dorothy allegedly had a tragic life, marked by rumors of infidelity and subsequent imprisonment in her own home by her husband, Charles Townshend. She is said to have died under mysterious circumstances in 1726. The most famous sighting of the Brown Lady occurred in 1936 when photographers from Country Life magazine, Captain Hubert C. Provand and his assistant Indre Shira were at Rainham Hall to photograph the house for an article. As they set up to take a photograph of the main staircase, they claimed to have seen a misty figure descending the stairs. Provand quickly took a picture which resulted in one of the most iconic and debated ghost photographs ever taken. The photograph shows a translucent figure in a brown dress appearing to descend the staircase. This image was published in Country Life and later in Life magazine, bringing widespread attention to the case. Despite numerous investigations and debates over its authenticity, the photograph has never been conclusively proven to be a hoax. Since the 1936 photograph, there have been numerous other reports of sightings and strange occurrences at Rainham Hall, further cementing the Brown Lady's reputation as one of the most documented and enduring ghost stories in history.
Kingdoms rise and empires crumble, and the knowledge and wisdom from past ages are lost in the foggy ruins of time. But for genuine seekers of truth, one place stands alone on a hill. Shining brightly in the darkness, you, dear listener, have reached the Hidden Citadel.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hidden Citadel. I'm your host, Willie Minix. I'm joined with your other host, Greg Kemp. And we are going to... What are we talking about today, Greg?
I think we're talking about apparitions and hauntings and
yes,
the experiences of many, including you'll even see the references in Scripture. So it's not like something that's off limits for us to discuss. Not only that, but to just say that, may not exist. There are elements that you see. There's references. There's specific words that are used. So, but
what's funny is today when I woke up, I thought we were talking about a different topic. Mm-hmm. But all week I've thought this, but all week I've been drawn to be studying this topic. So it's like it worked out perfectly. I thought we were going to talk about other dimensions or something.
Oh.
But no, I'm all
That's
into
good.
this.
I mean,
but this is the other dimensions kind of tie into this
it
anyway.
It does.
So.
Well, because one of the things,
okay.
Something you sent me, they talked about time slips. And it's really interesting because, and we talked about this a few podcasts ago, that
yeah, but that was the one I don't think
I
don't think that one got recorded. I think that might have been the episode that got lost. So we can talk about some of that today too, if we want to. Let me just give a recap. So what happened to me while I was in Liverpool was. We walked across the bridge on the Albert Dock. We came up to a building that said the Mermaid House, and I took a picture of it. And then the next day we walked back there, and there's this big statue, and there's a bunch of construction going on. And the construction guy said, where did this statue come from? And he said, it's been here forever. And I said, well, it wasn't here yesterday. He says, well, was I not here yesterday? And I was like, no. And I've got a picture to prove that he wasn't. And the guy says, I've been here all week. And he says, and that statue's been there for years. Well, the kids saw the statue, but my wife and I didn't see the statue. And I stood there to take a picture of this tiny little sign that said the Mermaid House. That's what attracted my attention. And I should have seen that big, massive statue standing right next to it. And so anyway, we were talking about time slips in Liverpool and how that was a common thing.
Wait, so the picture...
We're caught up now.
The picture doesn't have the statue in it, or it does?
The problem is the picture only has enough of the side of the mermaid in to show that the construction wasn't there. But it doesn't have enough of it to show that the statue wasn't there, which I really wish... If I had known that I was having a time slip, I would have made sure I got the whole thing. But I didn't know. But the guy told me, he says, no, we've had this barrier up all week long. And it's like there wasn't a barrier there. And in my picture, you can clearly see cars parked there where the barrier was supposed to be. So it's like something was weird. But they weren't like old-fashioned cars or anything. So I don't know. It was just a strange thing.
Yeah, it is. Wow.
But let's get back to you were saying about time slips and other dimensions.
Well, I was just saying that, in time slips or just even time travel, like there's just a lot about Scripture that it really feels like it's about time travel. I mean, when you have like the Transfiguration, when you have Rapture, when you have Enoch, or
almost like time portals in a way, like on the old Star Trek episode where they went up to the gate and they could jump through to different time periods. That's kind of what it seems like to me.
Well, being outside of time, if God is, okay, and anybody who's with God is, right? And then inserting yourself somewhere into time makes you traveling.
A traveler.
Makes you a traveler because you've been outside of it and then you get put back in. For some reason, my tone today sounds like Christopher Walken. Outside of it. Outside of time. I don't know what it is. I feel like very Christopher Walken today.
So, Chris, yesterday I was walking the dog. Yeah, right. I was walking the dog and I was thinking about ghosts. And I was thinking about how a lot of Christians will say, well, there's no such thing as ghosts. Ghosts are demons.
Yeah.
But we do believe in ghosts because we believe that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, of the giants that lived before and after the flood. And when they're slain, they become a demon. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, we believe in a ghost. But a lot of times if you ask your average Christian, they'll say, well, a demon is just a fallen angel. And a fallen angel is not a demon.
No.
They're different things. And then that got me thinking. The disciples were on the ship and they saw Jesus walking out across the water and they said, it's a ghost. And then Peter says, no, it's the Lord. Now, why would they immediately think it's a ghost if they didn't believe in ghosts?
That's the whole thing. That was my entire point at the beginning of the intro to this, is that it's an inbounds, very legal discussion, meaning that it's not like off limits, and it's something that's seems to be something. You don't mention something that you've never seen before that's out of the realm of possibility, unless it's something that has some frequency. And apparently, the conversation or the episode itself, the experience itself, had some frequency for Peter to reference it in such a way that they didn't go like, no, it's not. Those don't exist.
Well, and the fact that they casually mention when Jesus was resurrected that a lot of righteous people were resurrected with him and then that ascended with him. Now, here's something that I was thinking about, though. Have you ever read Chris Putnam's book, The Supernatural Worldview?
Uh-uh.
It's an entire book on trying to come up with a Christian understanding of ghosts and ESP and all these weird phenomena and trying to explain it from a Christian perspective. And one of the things that he says in the book is that it's too complex of a matter to just dismiss it as these are demons. But he says sometimes ghosts don't interact with people. The other thing he said was that oftentimes ghosts are seen to be shorter, than people, and their feet are missing. And he was like, it almost appears as if they're walking around on the old foundations of what things were back in their time period. And of course, we've built up on top of that, and so their feet would naturally disappear and they would appear shorter because they're walking on the old road that's buried beneath
that's interesting.
The street now.
I think that, I wonder if ghosts really have more of a very generic term to them. And while when you say they are disembodied elements of a Nephilim, I agree with that. But I also think that it might be the same kind of thing as Elohim, that it is kind of neutral in a way. It can mean something. It's any spirit, so it could mean It could very well mean that something is of the Nephilim, which is not is not welcome.
But consider this. Think about in the Bible, Jesus said, or it says in Revelation that the grave gave up its dead and the sea gave up its dead. And then you also, a lot of Christians will say, well, when you die, when you're absent from the body, you're present with the Father, or you're present with Christ. And it's like, okay, if you're a believer, you're absent from the body, you're present with Christ. But what if you're a non-believer? I don't read anywhere in Scripture where it says you instantly go to Sheol once you die if you're not a believer.
Yeah. I mean, except for the rich man and Lazarus, where...
Yeah, but some people might go directly to Sheol. But there's nothing that says specifically when you die as a non-believer, you immediately go to there. There's a whole... I mean, and the idea of time when you're dealing in a spiritual realm is a very strange thing. I mean, for a ghost, let's look at it from their perspective. If you're doomed to wander around... Have you ever found yourself invited to an event and not really knowing what the right apparel was to wear? If you wear something that's a little too classy, like a suit or something, you might feel out of place if everybody else is casual. If you wear something too casual, you might look around and notice that everyone else is dressed up and say to yourself, I'm just not dressed up for this occasion. Well, here at the Hidden Citadel, we have the perfect solution to this problem. Why don't you go buy yourself a Hidden Citadel tee today, and you can wear it anywhere. It's perfect for every occasion. You can wear it to a casual meeting. You can wear it to a business dinner. You could even wear it to a formal event such as a wedding or a funeral. All of these places and more are appropriate to wear a Hidden Citadel tee. And what's even more wonderful than just wearing the Hidden Citadel tee is you'll be supporting the work that we're doing here at the Hidden Citadel. So why don't you do yourself a favor and go buy yourself a Hidden Citadel t-shirt today. The link is down below in the description. Have a great day. In the ether, in the castle that you once lived in, that you were beheaded in, and you're walking around. Is that not Sheol?
No, I know.
I mean, is that not technically
not able to make any changes?
The nether,
not able to resolve things. Maybe even in the terror that was your life, you're still kind of reliving it. Of course, it makes a lot.
Yeah, and the question is, where is Sheol? There's a great gulf that divides it between the paradise, which doesn't exist anymore, or it exists, but it's empty because all those people are now with Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's a great gulf that separated paradise and Sheol, but there's a greater gulf that separates wherever Jesus is and Sheol, but we don't know where Sheol is. I mean, it says it's in the depths of the earth, but maybe it is the parts of it are on the earth, or maybe there are, like we were talking about the portals that you can kind of see into. Maybe when a ghost walks by, it's a mirror into that spiritual realm or something. But that doesn't count for those that interact with us And we both have stories we can tell about the interaction of ghosts, that we've demonstrated.
Yeah,
I think we should tell those stories today.
Well, I think what's the most, I don't know, the most Venn diagram kind of story that we have is way back when I was in college with your wife. We made a deal one night that there was talk of this this ghost of a guy that was walking. He walked his dog down next to the it was the lake that goes to chapel in the gym. And we were talking, and I said, all right, I'll come back tonight, and we'll go down, and because people had said they're out there, and all of a sudden they see a guy walking his dog, and they look and he's gone. And it's just like,
wow.
Many people talked about that guy. He's always right next to the steps. And so I was like, Trevor, we got to go. We're going to go do that. We made an agreement, and it was like 2 PM. So I said, I'll come back tonight at 8. We'll meet down there. She's like, all right. And I went down there. Trevor never showed.
No.
I was like,
probably
what?
fell
And
asleep.
no, she had this whole, Trevor thinking. She was like, I just don't think it's right to go look there. I don't want to get into that. I don't think.
Well, that sounds like
I think
her.
she was like,
yeah.
it's not very edifying. And she's right, but I was like, you didn't even tell me anything. I'm by, what if the dog attacked me? Like,
yeah, right. It could have been a real dog.
But so I went down there, and I didn't see it. I was kind of like, ugh, because, but you have that. Back around the same time, I was driving with a friend of mine. We were in, I don't remember where we were, near Hawthorne, New York, on 9A, and this is crazy. We're driving, and both look, and it was night, and it was pretty clear night, and we're looking in front of us, and we both yelled at the same time, "Gray wall," because in front of us, it was almost like it was almost the forming of by way of like clouds, but we didn't. It just looked like a gray stone wall had just put itself right in the middle of the road.
Dropped right in front of you.
Yeah, and we
wow.
both, but without talking, you didn't say anything. We just went, gray wall! And I turned the car sideways, and we just skidded like this, went alongside, we went right up against it, and it was gone. It was just like,
whoa.
And I was like, wait a minute, what just happened?
That's amazing.
And we just both yelled, gray wall. But, but then again, you wonder, was there
and you have to also
down the road that we weren't supposed to?
You're not maybe, but you got to also let the listeners know you're not taking hallucinogenics.
We are not
at the time.
No, we were not.
Yeah, so it's like that's something key that people need to know, because most people listen and say, "Well, yeah, you guys were stoned." No,
you
weren't.
At all.
You were just driving home.
Just driving home, and it was just. I think it was funny because I think we were coming home from it was like a game night at someone's house. We were just talking about that, and all of a sudden it's just. But it's one thing if someone says look out. It's something like whoa, what's that? But
gray wall,
something
that's very
specifically yelled gray wall, and then
that's amazing.
And then me skidding the car sideways. If he was not on board with us avoiding the gray wall, he'd been freaked out, yelling at me, whatever. Yeah,
you're like, what are you doing?
He was in full compliance with the decision to avoid the gray wall.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So here's one of mine. I was working when I was in seminary at a laundromat as a security guard, because the laundromat was in a pretty rough neighborhood. We had a lot of people, the homeless people, crack addicts, all sorts of crazy stuff. It was next to a bar. People were always getting in fights. So here we are, armed guards at a laundromat. And what was nice about it is most of the time nothing happened, so I could sit at my desk in the office and I could do my homework, for seminary while I was in there. And one night I'm sitting there, and it must have been about 8:00 at night, something like that. And all of a sudden I feel somebody grab me like this, right on my shoulders. Like somebody went from behind and just grabbed me on my shoulders, and I jumped, and I worked with my uncles, so I thought, my uncle's playing a prank on me.
Right.
So I jumped up out of the chair and I whipped around, and there was nobody there. And I was like, well, this is strange. So I went and I looked under the table. Nobody was there. I poked my head out we had a sliding window for the office. I poked my head out the window and I looked. Nobody was in the foyer. I was like, what is going on there? So I was like, well, I got my Bible, and I just turned around and I said, in the name of Jesus, I command you to leave right now. And then the air, when it was there, it felt like cold, you know, and then all of a sudden it went back to normal after I said that. So now this is where it gets really weird. I mean, not that wasn't weird enough.
I was going to say, that was it?
Yeah, no, that's not the weird part.
Oh.
The weird part is about a week later, some guy comes walking in the middle of the day, and he's looking around. He's like, whoa, wow, I can't believe what you guys have done to this place. And I opened my window. I was like, can I help you? And the guy comes up to the window. He's like, yeah. He's like, I used to work here when this was a cab company. He says, I was a cabbie. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And he was like, but man, this place looks great. And I was like, well, I can't take any credit. I don't own the place. I just work here.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, it's really cool. He's like, hey, can I ask you something? And I was like, yeah, sure. What? And he's like, have you ever noticed anything weird in here? I was like, what do you mean weird?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, the owner, the previous owner, the guy that ran the cab company, died in that chair that you're sitting in.
Oh.
And I'm like, really? And he was like, because we didn't change the furniture out.
Yeah.
Like, all the furniture was the same furniture from the cab company. And he says, yeah, he died in that chair that you're sitting in, right at the desk there. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, he was a weird guy. He said, if he thought you were slacking off, he would walk up behind you and grab you by your shoulders just to kind of scare you. I was like, really?
Whoa.
That's quite interesting. And he's like, well, yeah, if anything weird, he's like, but some of the people that used to work here said that his ghost still haunted the place. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't talk to him at all. I didn't mention anything about what happened to me. I just kind of nodded. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And he was like, well, you know, it's really cool, but I got to go and get back to work. And so then the guy left, and I was like, man, that's pretty strange.
That seems to resolve
You know?
at least something. I mean, it's like...
Well, and so my theory was, after this, at the time I thought all ghosts were demons. You know, that's the standard Christian line, and that's kind of what I assumed. And so my thinking at the time became, okay, what if you have a demon, and your characteristics that you take on as people think those are your natural characteristics are not your characteristics, but they're the characteristics of the demon. And it's the demon that wants to scare people and grab them and all that. And so when he dies, the demon is let loose to haunt that place and to bother people. But I don't know that satisfies me as an answer as much as this jerk still lingering around in the area bothering people until I banished him, you know, in the name of Jesus.
Well, I guess that's what. So if it's a demon, then it would have its own motivations, it'd have its own intentions, it'd have its own actions, and it really wouldn't be a part of who that person was when they were living. But it sounds like this person, the whatever the spiritual remains of that person, is still continuing, like maybe even an eternal recurrence, like an endless loop.
Unless, like I said, the actions that the person demonstrates in life are not their own actions.
Yeah.
Like they take on characteristics, and the characteristics are not theirs. Like let's say when he was a little kid, he didn't grab people or anything. I don't know because I don't know the guy, but I'm just saying for sake of argument, if he never grabbed people on the shoulders, but then once he got possessed, he started grabbing people. But on the other hand, it's like, I have no reason to believe that this guy was demon possessed, other than it just sounded like he wasn't a Christian.
But, all right, but but if he was just finding guys who are slacking and coming up to him and encouraging them essentially to start working again, that's kind of benevolence. And I don't think that. I mean, the only time I can think of that that there's something that an unclean spirit did that was of benefit to others. Was when the unclean spirit was in the little girl, and she was forecasting the future, and the guys were making a lot of money off of her. But even still,
yeah, but that wasn't benefiting the girl. That was like, only benefiting the people using
wasn't really
her.
Destructive.
But the other thing too, there's a lot of tales of people that are visited by their dead relatives after the relative died, and the relative is all nice and kind and good and encouraging, and a lot of times these people end up, well, I grew up Christian and my grandmother was a Christian, but after that I started going to psychics and things like that because, and so it's like it's a benevolent sort of act, but it's leading the person into the occult.
Okay, so that's what I see is almost, we are instructed that we can be made aware of the schemes of evil. Like we can recognize them, right? So it is not beyond the possibility here that ghosts and that sort of thing can be a scheme to almost create, instead of a very black and white, that is heaven and hell, that there is God and the devil, that there is, eternal life and damnation. If you can sway it into another variable, another religion, another sort of thinking, another interpretation of what eternity is or what a belief system is, that's a victory for like, right?
Yeah.
So that, but then you got to go, all right, there's a couple of things we see, like, I don't remember which assistant it was, but his name was Gehazi, I think, and he was either Elisha's or Elijah's servant.
Yes.
And, he said that open his eyes, let him see what's really there.
So Elisha.
And when he opened his eyes, he saw that there was that in all
the
around
angel
them,
army.
there was, so there was a spiritual dimension that was there. But then let's also look at Samuel with the Witch of Endor, that she brought up essentially his ghost.
Yeah, the actual spirit.
So and that was
Samuel.
Obviously, that was not.
Well, and she seemed kind of surprised. Yeah, some people think, okay, well, let me talk about another thing that happened to me about not being an evil being. So when we were in Texas, this was when we lived in Austin. It was right before you guys moved down to Frisco. And so we were planting a church there, and I had traded a guitar for a computer from some kid that lived in the neighborhood because I needed a computer. But this computer was always giving me grief, and it was like every time I turned around, something was going wrong. And so I was always having to update something, fix something, change something. There was always, because this kid built the computer himself, right? And it was supposed to be like the best computer you're ever going to own. And so, anyway, I was frustrated, and I was at the point where I was like, I am so ready to just pick this thing up and chuck it out the window. I just aggravated as could be, and I tried so many different things to make whatever was wrong work, and it wouldn't work. And so basically what happened is I said, okay, if I get mad, my wife's going to get mad at me. I'm not being a good example. I'm just going to lay down because my computer was right next to my bed. My desk was there. I was like, I'm just going to lay down and take a nap. Maybe that's the best thing that can happen right now. So I laid down on the bed, and I'm just like praying, Lord, I really need to figure out how to make this computer work. And all of a sudden, the phone rings. So I reach over, I pick up the phone. Now, 2 weeks before this, I don't know how best to tell this story.
Okay.
So I'm just going to tell it this way.
Okay.
2 weeks before this, my old pastor in Indiana died.
Okay.
He was kind of young. He was like 53 or something, 54 when he died. Because one time he was working up in the church, and he electrocuted himself, and one of the guys came in and found him, and they pulled him off the electricity. They didn't know how long, but it had done some serious damage to his heart.
Yeah.
But he lived for like 10 years or something after that. But anyway, I get the phone call, and it's Lyle. It's my old pastor on the phone. And he's like, hey, how's it going? I was like, oh, hey, Lyle, it's good. I was like, how are you? And he's like, I'm great. He's like, I heard you were having computer problems. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is driving me nuts. I was like, I don't know what to do about this. And so he says, and Lyle was really into computers. And so he says, well, hey, did you try this? And I was like, yeah, I tried that. And he's like, well, what about that? Did you go here and try that? Yeah, I did that. and I did this. Okay, I was going to say that. Well, did you try this? And I was like, yeah, I tried that too. I was like, I'm telling you, I've tried everything. And he says, okay. He was like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go into this subfolder and do this and do that, change this, open up this, and blah, 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 blah. I was like, hold on a second. You got to go over that again. So he kind of repeats it, the process for me. I was like, okay, I think I got that. And then I said, oh, hey, what's it like up there? Not meaning heaven, meaning Indiana.
Yeah.
Because I'm in
That's
Texas.
really funny.
And in my head, I'm thinking, what's the weather like up there? Because it's hot. And I said, because it's really hot here. And then he says, it is more beautiful than, yeah, right. He says, it is more beautiful than anything you can possibly imagine. And then all of a sudden, I get this tingling feeling all over my body, and the whole room just gets lighter and lighter and lighter and brighter until everything is just completely white, and I can't see anything, but I've got this feeling of amazing peace that just washes all over me. And then all of a sudden I open my eyes and I'm laying on the bed and I look over at the phone and the phone's on the cradle, and I'm like, what just happened to me? And I was like, man, that's one of the weirdest things that ever happened. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Maybe that what he told me to do will work. So I go to the computer and I did everything that he told me, and my computer immediately started working right. And I was like, I can't explain it. He was dead, but he called me on the phone, but yet he didn't call me on the phone. It was like some weird, I don't know what it was. It's like when Paul said, I don't know if I'm in the third heaven or if I was in the body, or that's how I felt. I don't know how to explain what happened to me.
That's crazy.
But it was could have been Belial.
Was it Belial?
Yeah, instead of Lyle, yeah. I don't know. He taught me. He fixed my computer. But my dad says computers are demonic anyway, so who knows?
Yeah, I feel like they're headed that way. Yeah, I remember. So we moved into this house. We've had a couple of things. You know, it's really funny because when I was younger, any sort of ghost story or anything having to do with anything like that would just freak me out. Just made I would just think I can't imagine even being around something. I mean, and, you know, I'd scare myself at night, like looking. I remember being at my cousin's house when I was like 11, and he lived in Candor, New York, just kind of like way out in the field. Like it was like, you know, a dirt road kind of led to his house, like if you could, and
oh wow,
that kind of thing. So I was out, and his name's Darren, and I was sleeping on his floor, and he had night terrors, and I didn't know he had night terrors. And so I woke up in the middle of the night. He's pointing over above me, saying, "Get rid of it. What is that thing? Get it out of here. Get it out of here." And he's pointing above me. And then he went back to sleep. And I spent the whole rest of the night just like looking around, going, what did he see? Like, what? And I explained to my uncle the next day. He's like, "Oh, Darren has night terrors." I was like, "Yeah, but blah." So anyway, that whole thing just kind of freaked me out. But anyway, when we moved into this 100-year-old house back in 2004, and they said, you know, that we bought it from one of the offspring of the original owners. Like there was 9 kids, and this is like she was one of the 9 kids. 2 of her siblings died in the house in the attic of tuberculosis. The family just had owned the house the whole time. It was like an acre and a tenth. It's a really cool house. Old kind of.
Was this in Sleepy Hollow?
No, this is in Cortland Manor. And
I remember.
It was like. Anyway, but you know, while we were there, just little things just started. First of all, my son would, you know, every once in a while, I'd look over in the corner and smile, and we're like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, the boy there." And we're like, "What boy?" And we just gave him a name. We said, "Well, Bob," and you know, we call it a Rob. We call him one of the two. I can't remember what it was. But you know, every once in a while, he'd look over and smile or wave, and then we're like, And he goes, is it the boy? He goes, yeah. And then he go back. He wasn't afraid. Didn't scare him at all. Just,
Whoa.
but it was every once in a while, like he'd walk, like literally walking with us or sitting there with us. All of a sudden, he'd look over and just wave and then go back, like as if it's really there. And a guy in church is like, "Yep, kids and dogs, they can always see." But anyway,
They can always see
so
him, yeah.
one night I was downstairs on the couch and Audra was upstairs and I was watching a football game or something and I hear her talking upstairs and I go, "Hey, who are you talking to?" Because the kids were downstairs with me. She goes, "You just walked by me." I go, "No, I've been down here the whole time."
Whoa.
Yeah, and I go, "No, I've been down here."
That's weird.
She goes, "Oh," and we just both kind of chuckled that, oh, it must be a part of all the other stuff that's happening here, which is so
All the weird
strange
stuff there.
because I wasn't afraid at all. In fact, I woke
That's
up one
weird.
night, I had fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, opened my eyes, and there was a hand going up and down in front of my face. You know, when someone's trying to see if you're awake or if you can see.
Yeah.
I was watching it, and then I blinked a couple times, it was gone. And again,
That's
but
strange.
here's the thing that's so powerful about it is that none of the thing about like weird just I mean there's tons and tons of weirdness, but it was like none of it.
So it didn't feel
made me
demonic.
afraid.
It just felt weird.
Yeah, but none of it. It didn't even feel weird. It was just like, oh, that all right. But it didn't. There was no fear in any of us, and I would think that there.
That's crazy.
I found like bones in the basement, but I think there might have been like I don't know, probably animal bones,
Chicken bones or
Yeah.
something.
But there was one thing. If you were sitting in this chair, over next to the window where my wife's computer was when she was working, because she worked from home, and there's a window to your right. If you're at the computer, something would go by on the outside of the window. It would walk by, and it was brown. And I know that because it happened to me a
Wow.
couple times, and I would look outside, I didn't see anything there. And I said to Audra, I said, "Do you ever notice when you're sitting in the chair?" She goes, "Oh, the thing walks by you." I go, "What color is it?" She said, "Brown." It's like,
Oh, man.
yeah, it was just so strange. But the freakiest thing was that
That's weird, man. You haven't told me
Yeah.
yet about any
wait,
of this stuff.
this one's the weirdest thing. Not the weirdest, but when we think back, we think what could have been. So one of our, and you might remember Tisha from church. She was babysitting one
Yeah.
night, and she had both. Now she grew up in a house that was so mystical or so I don't know, X-Filey that she was on the top floor.
Paranormal.
Good. And she's on the top floor. It's the attic, and the attic there was no door. There's just an opening and stairs that went down, and then a door, kind of thing at the bottom.
Yeah.
So when someone's coming up the stairs, into the room, you hear the door open, and then someone comes up the stairs, and then they ascend into the attic, kind of thing. And so she was saying that every once in a while the door would open, and the dog would be with her. And the dog would run over to the opening and then nobody would be there. The door would open, and you could hear someone walking up the stairs. So she just
Weird.
kind of laughed that off. So she's like us. It became kind of normal
She's-
for her.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got it. Okay. And she started telling us this because we'd never told her of all the stuff that had happened in that house. So she kind of couched it carefully. We go to church
Yeah.
together. We did we worked with the ministry and stuff like that. So I think she was just being careful, but she goes, I was sitting on the couch. I had Lucy on my lap, and Noah was next to me. And Noah turns and says, "Who's the man on the other side of you?" And she referenced. She knew about the story about the boy. She goes, "Oh, you mean little Rob?" He
Yeah.
goes, "No, this is a man." And he described him from his feet all the way up to his head, and he looked like Claudio. And he goes, "He looks like Claudio. He looks
Weird.
like Claudio." And he's trying to get her to look at this guy that he sees sitting next to her. And he's talking about this, and he's like, he's right. He's describing him like he's right there. And then
Wow.
she's just sitting there going, "There's nobody here." She didn't tell him there's nobody there. She's just kind of playing kind of with him. They went back to whatever they're doing, and then he didn't reference
Yeah.
it again. So she told, but there was one time where I was in the living room and the doorbell rang, and we never used our front porch. We only used the side. And a guy showed
Yeah.
up. The guy was there, and he said, "My car's broken down. Can you take me to get gas?" And very recklessly and probably foolishly, without any sort of anything, I just went and did that and brought him back, got him gas, and sent him on his way. He could have been anybody. He could have been the Green River Killer. He could have been, he could have been Son of Sam. Like, I didn't do any sort of, it's really just foolish on my part. But I'm just thinking, I wonder if somebody came into the yard, or somebody came up on the porch and looked in and saw someone sitting with Tisha and the two kids. That's
Maybe.
It was so weird when I described it to Audra. Audra was so convinced that it was not what we usually. It was almost something protective. Like there was another in the fire. You know, it was like another person.
Yeah.
Who was with so someone had wandered in and looked in and saw that there's another man that was sitting there too, and had warded off whoever had come in. But Noah saw it. Noah saw the guy.
Yeah. That's my dad one time said that he was in Arizona and back in 63, and there was I don't know if it was a Kmart or what it was, but it was a place that had a really big parking lot. And Dad said it was like out in the middle of the desert. He lived in Phoenix, but this was Phoenix way back before it was really developed. And he said, so they had this Kmart and there was nothing around it. And the bus stop was way out by the road, nowhere near the Kmart. Mm-hmm. And all there was a bench. And so he was sitting on the bench, and he said in the morning his sister said, look, here's a quarter for the bus, and here's a quarter to get a coffee, on your way to work. And so my dad was like, okay, so he had 50 cents and a bus schedule.
Yeah.
He says he's sitting there reading the bus schedule, and all of a sudden a guy walks up in a business suit with a briefcase, and he sits down, and the guy opens his briefcase, and he says, oh no, I forgot my wallet at home. And Dad said, oh, well, the bus is only a quarter. He says, here, I got an extra quarter my sister gave me, and he hands the guy a quarter. Mm-hmm. And the guy says, oh, thank you very much. And he says, do you know what time the bus is coming? And Dad looked down at the schedule, and he says, well, I think our bus is coming at whatever time. And he looked up, and the guy was gone. And so Dad jumped up, and he looked under the chair. He looked around in the desert. He was like, there was no way the guy could have got away. And Dad wasn't a Christian at the time. And he said, but he remembered Grandma teaching him the scripture, sometimes we entertain angels unaware.
Yes.
And he said that was one of the first things that kind of pointed him back to becoming a Christian later on, was that weird experience, because he was like, I think that guy must have been an angel, So I don't know what else he could have been. But I don't think angels inhabit houses like what you're describing too, where you're upstairs talking to Audra at the same time that you're downstairs on the couch. Sounds like a time slip in a way.
Yeah, it was really, yeah. I mean, and then this house that we're in here, a couple of months after we moved in, we talked to the kids separately. And we didn't do this on purpose. It wasn't like a double-blind experiment or anything. We just happened to say, hey, what do you think? Because, we had you remember our house in Texas? I love that house. My gosh.
That was a great house.
I love that thing. That had just so much character. It was huge, So when we moved into this,
I love that place.
Dinky thing, before we had some renovations done, we wanted to keep the kids kind of life is beautiful. Hey, it's good, and hey, and
yeah, don't feel bad that we left our big houses behind.
Count your blessings. So, but I was like, what do you think of the house? And they both said separately, like, oh, good, except for the old man. And I was like, what do you mean the old man? And they each, they weren't together when we did this. This is separate times, separate places. They each described, he said, he's kind of like Grandpa. And I said, Audra's dad. And I said, what is he, and like, where do you see him? Like, he comes up and he opens the door and looks and just checks on us. And then he checks on me. They said me. Checks on me and just leaves. Just puts his head in and then leaves. And they weren't afraid of it. I think they just didn't like it because it was just like not us. I was like,
who is this guy? Yeah.
So
why does he have to live in this house?
I'll tell you, I called our clergy, Dave Anderson, And he came over
Yeah.
and we spent time praying in the house. Never saw him again. However, now before that though, so the guy that owned this house and built this house, his name was Loyal Reynolds. His first name I forgot. They call it Loyal was his nickname. But anyway, he he died in the house here. So it was.
See, we're getting weird. Loyal and Lyle.
Yes. They're starting to link up. Yeah, in our pre-production, we came up with just two similar names. Anyway, so so it was a Saturday, and it was like in the fall, and I was thinking, all right, there's a wood burning stove in the basement, and I need to make sure that it's working just in case that we lose electricity or something, and I need to, we need to get heat in the house and stuff. So let me just get a fire going and then put it out just to make sure that it's going through the flue okay and there's nothing blocking or anything. And so I did that. It was a Saturday afternoon. It worked fine. By Saturday night, it had gone out. Now, before I went to bed that night, I opened it just one more time, put my hand in. There were like some chunks of wood, and they were like coals and no heat. I picked them up. They're fine. I mean, I'm touching them, and they're fine.
Yeah.
Nothing. Everything is completely out. I mean, it's cold. The wood burning stove was cold. We go to church the next day. I'm coming back from church. We're driving in, and there's smoke coming out of the chimney, and I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
And I flew in, went down in the basement, full fire, in the wood burning stove. Now it was like 2 weeks later, the thing with the kids happened, and then that's when we brought over Dave, and then that was it.
None of that stuff happened
full fire.
Anymore.
It was bizarre. I was like,
That's
I don't even know how
crazy.
those things could have started. Even if there's like a backdraft that would have, because it does have an under chamber.
Yeah, like if there was something.
There is
that may have been smoldering.
catalytic converter chamber. There's something.
Yeah, because it's like the Indians from Florida. They used to have a thing where they would take and pull. They put their logs in a cross shape in the fire, and then they would pull it out. They'd pull it out, and the fire would die down, and then later they could push the logs back in, blow on it, and it would catch back on fire again. But you would feel the heat.
But I would have, even if that chamber had some coals in it, I would have known.
Yeah.
Like there would have been something. Nothing, because I put my hand in.
That's
it's
crazy.
not the wisest thing to put the hand in, but hey.
Well, you can feel for warmth at least. You
Nothing.
know?
But even still,
that's
full
crazy.
fire. I mean, you almost have to. There would have happened not only something to create the fire, but you would need something even more combustible or flammable to make that sort of.
That's what I'm saying. Because if you just have coal in there, coal will eventually catch
no coal
on fire, but it's. Oh no! It just takes a lot. That's insane.
But it never happened again after we prayed it.
Never happened again.
Nothing happened again.
That's weird.
Nothing like after the.
They just like cleaned up the whole house from whatever was.
That was yeah. Huh. I remember telling the neighbor behind us who knew the guy, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that sounds like Loyal." He goes,
"That's weird."
He goes, "That would be."
You had another story where you guys were at, I think it was your mom's house in Long Island, and something was playing the piano or something.
Yeah. So we were at my grandmother's house, and we were sitting at the table playing. We're all just sitting there getting ready for bed, and the piano in the other room just went, brink, like, but they weren't.
Like
it wasn't
somebody scraped the strings.
But it didn't sound like that. It's not like if there's a mouse running over the the things. It was
the strings.
But a piano is a percussion instrument. It was like a sound of percussion. Like it was not a sound of like just an intersection of pressure and physics or just tension or something having to do with like the weather. It was like a sound of someone playing the piano, and our eyes just got big. We're like, whoa, but it's funny because I think Noah just doesn't get fazed by anything, and for us it was like, well, we had that other house, so who cares? The only
Yeah,
one
right.
that. But Lucy was like, I'm never sleeping again.
Have a good day, kid. That's crazy. What did you ever have any kind of weird other things at
No.
that house? Like, was that the first time that happened?
Only time.
And nobody in the family had ever mentioned anything like that before?
No. And that's
weird. Did you ever talk to the previous owners of the house that you lived in that had all the weird stuff?
No, because they all died. I see.
So they were all
9
dead.
siblings, and the last of the 9 siblings died, and that's when the house went on the market.
And then you bought the house. Wow.
So we bought it, in prime apparitional state. It's like it was all set for us
really
to experience.
Weird.
Oh yeah.
Okay, when you lived in Sleepy Hollow, did you have any weird experiences
Just one.
there? Because when I worked in Sleepy Hollow, I can tell you a story about that too.
Well, just one. We were in actually the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and we're all walking. There's a bunch of us. It was my wife's younger sisters, and they loved coming out to visit us. And then we around Halloween, and we'd all go and walk around. It's Sleepy Hollow. I mean, that's like the North Pole is to Christmas.
It's a perfect
Sleepy
place
Hollow.
to be.
Right, Sleepy Hollow is to Halloween. As the North Pole is to Christmas. And Calvary is to
the only other place you could get more Halloween is Salem.
Yeah, Salem, right. So we're it's funny we're walking as a group, and nobody's saying anything. We're just walking, and we walked past this bush, and it was it wasn't a bush that anybody could hide behind or within. It was just this little bush. Walking past it, and we hear very clearly someone just go, "Shh." I mean, it wasn't the wind. It was, and it was so clear that we all looked at each other like without saying anything, and we all just ran because. Okay.
Oh man!
If it were the wind, if it was anything, like we would have said something, but we all had the same inclination that.
Just all had the same feeling. Get out of here.
That librarian that's buried in the bush is telling us to shut up. It's like, shh.
You gotta admit, though, the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery is the creepiest place on earth. It's pretty creepy. So I was at Terrytown Music Hall, and my boss, he says, we need to haul these beer kegs upstairs because there was a place downstairs where people could buy drinks.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a place upstairs where people could buy drinks. So we had to haul these beer kegs up to the upstairs balcony or whatever, wherever that room was. So it was a lot of work because, I mean, they're heavy, and so we're kind of taking a break. And my boss is like, well, I think there's some water here. Let's get some water. So we're getting water, and all of a sudden we hear this clomp, 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 clomp above us. And we were like, wait a minute, all the guys are downstairs. And I was like, who's up there? And my boss says, oh, that's the ghost. I was like, what do you mean the ghost? and he's an atheist. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know, this place is supposed to be haunted. He's like, there's always somebody walking around up in the attic. And I was like, awesome. Really? I said, do you want me to get rid of him? Because, I mean, I can exorcise the place. And he's like, no, they don't want him to leave. Meaning the owners won't like the fact that they had a ghost in the theater, And I was like, that's crazy. I was like, but it's like everything around there, everywhere you go, somebody, because it's so old, I guess, somebody has a haunting story on about every other block.
They do. Like it was amazing. Like it was just you kind of felt it in the air, especially around Halloween. But it was like you just kind of like walk around. What's weird is it wasn't fearful.
Why do you think that is? Is it because people?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but some people get freaked out by it, But what do you think from a psychological perspective? If you were going to say, I mean, you and I both are not naturalists. We're supernaturalists.
Yeah.
But from a psychological perspective, what would other people in your field, you know, how are they explaining this stuff away?
Well, let's start with the first part of your question, because if you can normalize anything. I mean, there are parts of this world that people live in, civilizations that live in, where people are used to war on a daily basis, bombs going off, and they just go to school. There are people who get used to poverty that normalize anything. So anything can be normalized. In other words, so even a bunch of paranormal activity, after a while, if it's just something that's a part of you, then there's no contrast between what you consider to be normal and then that. You know, if that's your normal, that's your normal. So that's what psychologists would point to as far as it not affecting you, or you becoming callous or just used to it in such a way. But in terms of just the field, like there's two things. One's called pareidolia and one's called apophenia. Pareidolia is where you're it's essentially like you're seeing things that aren't there, but it's images. And it's
right.
It's
like you see a rock, and then all of a sudden you see the picture of the Virgin Mary and the rock.
The eidolon, which is in it's para again alongside. It's along, para meaning alongside or in place of, or preventing, or distorting, and the eidolon, which is meaning the image. So it has to be something that you see. Something that you think is there that's visually there and it's not. Now, you can, you definitely have that with certain kinds of diagnoses, certainly with schizophrenia, certainly with various forms like hebephrenia and even some sorts of mania, you can have that. But then you also have apophenia, and apophenia is like drawing strong associations for things that are not associated. And so it could be a collection of stimuli that has led you to believe that it's something that is there, someone is there, and something's really happening, and it's really not, and it's really more like quote unquote in your head.
Well, and how is apophenia not Gestalt thinking? Because you and I talk about that a lot too, about how somebody that's more of a Gestalt thinker connects things that nobody else would connect.
Right, and I think it's all right, so any sort of mental disorder or a disorder in general has to have some inhibiting effects over a long period of time, usually over 6 months, affecting social, emotional, academic, vocational, any relational, anything like that. So if you have a gestalt that you're putting things together and you're edifying, like we have in Scripture, like it's building, it's creating, it's adding to your existence, then chances are it's not apophenia. Apophenia that's causing fear, that's causing distortions, it's causing to push others away from you, that sort of thing. That's more apophenia. That's not Gestalt thinking.
Okay. Now let me ask another question. So you're a psychologist that deals mainly with children.
Yes.
So when your kids see these strange apparitions, what was it about it that your first thought was, oh, it's a ghost or whatever, it's a strange phenomenon, rather than, oh, I wonder if my kid is schizophrenic?
No. Okay. So the first thing is like, it's we're in a...
Because the reason I asked that is because I think a lot of listeners, this would be edifying for them, because maybe they don't have a psychologist to go to, but they might be experiencing weird things in their house, or their kids are seeing weird things. Maybe this might help.
All right, so anything in psychology, you have to take, you have to have a frequency, intensity, and a duration. As it's going on, like the first occurrence, or the N, we call it the number of the occurrence, like first time it happens, we don't really think much of it. Next time it happens, we begin to go, okay, that's twice. And then the third or fourth time, you begin to go, all right, wait, what's happening here? Now, if it was by itself, we'd kind of think, all right, what is he seeing? But in the context of the house and all the weird things that was going on in the house at the time, there wasn't, when we say frequency, intensity, and duration, there is frequency, but it's not a frequency that's an outlier to anything else that's going on there. It's not that there, and there was no intensity, which means a contrast from normal, because it didn't scare us, it didn't seem to be alarming, it didn't inhibit anything. And then duration, it was very brief. So it's like there was nothing that was,
Yeah.
and so by the the third or fourth or fifth time, it was more kind of amusing because he wasn't affected by it at all, and then it just stopped
Yeah.
happening. The whole thing just kind of stopped
Well,
happening.
then, okay, so that brings up a different question. Do you think, and I guess this is speculative, so, it really, who knows, but do you think the fact that you guys are a Christian family and you're praying every day, you're seeking God, you're teaching your kids how to pray, that if that was demonic activity, that you were holding it at bay, or was it, are you just, or does it make more sense that it's just some benign supernatural thing? I mean, what do you?
That's a great question. I never thought about it
There
that
are
way.
people out there. There are people out there that are going to say, "Dude, that house had demons in it, and you're supposed to be a Christian. You didn't exorcise it." What would you say to a person?
It's interesting because we are supposed to be humble. We're given the authority of Christ, but we're also supposed to be humble to we're our position is to do all things through Christ and not of ourselves. And I don't think there's a part of us at any time there that felt threatened enough to go there. But it's a really interesting question that you raised, because I've never thought about it like that. Well, what if there were elements in that house that were essentially, it was like Beetlejuice, trying to get at us, but we had that peace that passes all the. So okay, so look, so wait, let's go to the disciples on the ship. There are three things that happen on that.
Yep.
All right. You had one, they were overreacting. They were overreacting to a storm that was going on. Okay. Now they're fishermen; they've seen storms before, but this one was different. And they started ruining their own mission by what they were supposed to be doing, and they were destroying themselves, but for their own mission. Whatever they're supposed to be doing, they're throwing things overboard. Right. That's number one. Two, Jesus had disconnected himself from the entire event and was asleep. In order to be asleep, you have to have complete peace and lack of concern of everything that's around you, and not to be disturbed by anything to be asleep. That's
true.
You're completely disconnected from the crisis event, the episode, right? And then three, of course, is there's a spiritual element that was affecting the whole thing, and Jesus wasn't affected until he woke up and said, "Quiet, be still."
Yeah.
But so you had three things there. But what I'm thinking here is that, well, in that house, we were kind of just disconnected. The spiritual element and whatever was supposed to be trying to create fear and affect our belief system or whatever it was, we were essentially in the Jesus sleep, the peace that passes all understanding, because we weren't affected at all. We went to bed at night. None of us stayed awake at night worrying about them. It didn't affect us at all until some clergy came over and
you just did your thing.
So I think that having the peace and protection of Christ is a very palpable physical thing, and that you're there with this, because how would we sleep at night? How would we? I'd be walking in the house going, like, "Did you hear anything happen today?" We didn't walk around like the news of the day was what's happening in the world, not what's happening in our house.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a great question, though.
We are coming up on the hour.
All right.
Do you have to go anywhere?
I do.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want to do, because you brought this up, is next time I want to talk about sleep hauntings. Because some people, you mentioned when you're asleep, you're at perfect peace, nothing's bothering you and all that stuff. But we do know that there are people that experience sleep paralysis, but then also people that have terrifying demonic dreams and things like that. And I think we can go from talking about the ghosts, and it'll bridge over into all the weird things that happen while you're sleeping. What do you think about that?
I love it. Well, I mean, and just as a primer, when you are asleep, your brain does not turn off. And so it is still taking in information. And that's what's so fascinating about the Jesus experience, because there was a storm going on, there was disciples yelling, there was all kinds of stuff going on, and yet Jesus had turned all that off and was asleep. Because when you're asleep, your heater in your room, the creaking, the storms, your brain then starts trying to make sense of it and creates essentially like it weaves together. It's called incongruity resolve. Taking all those pieces and trying to make it into a thought, and a thought becomes a plot.
Something that makes sense.
And if your sensory system is not kind of picking up on anything disturbing, you are in perfect peace while you're sleeping. It's and by the way,
cool.
It's funny. I was taking I tried to there was a friend of mine, his father had a stroke, and he said that they're trying to rehabilitate his father. The brain is very much affected, and the motor skills and that sort of thing. And he had read that magnesium threonate, the 3-on-8, I think it's called, is the only magnesium or only kind of supplement that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So it has they give it to stroke victims and stuff like that. So I was having this tinnitus kind of thing, and I was like, I'm gonna try taking it. So I started taking it, and the funny thing is, I started having regularly these dreams, these that are such saccharine, prosaic, plain plot dreams. Your dreams, you're walking down the street, normal dreams, you're walking down the street, and a car's coming at you, and then a dragon comes, and then someone hits fire, and you're running, and you wake up, and you're in all that. Those are usually the elements of your dreams, because I think that you have if your body's at rest and it encounters any stimuli, it goes into more of the anxious state of fight or flight, that kind of thing, and then it creates a plot that goes along with it post facto. But magnesium threonate does the opposite. It calms your system, and so I would have these dreams walking on the street. I get in my car, and I wake up. So I was like, I didn't know why I was having those dreams, and then I thought, I wonder if it's the magnesium. I was talking to my son. He's very into nutrition. All his friends are into nutrition. They all lift weights, and they're all like. And I said I was taking magnesium threonate, and Noah goes, "Oh, Kobe's taking that." And he goes, "What do you think?" I go, "Well, what's funny is I'm just having the most pleasant dreams about." And he goes, "I was just saying that the other day. Same with me." And Noah goes, "Hey, he was just saying the same thing. I'm just having these plain,
that's crazy,
no plot, boring. Yeah, but you wake up from that, it's awesome. You're just like, rested look at me." It's crazy.
That's funny. Those are the dreams that confuse me, because then I wake up, I'm like, wait a minute, I was just driving down the street. How did I get here?
And it's what's weird is, in the dream, you're expecting something to happen. Like, I walk in the kitchen, I pour myself something. It's not blood. Oh, it's just water.
It's just water. I'm good.
Yeah. Next time. That's a good topic.
Awesome. All right, people, you've been listening to the Hidden Citadel. I hope you have a great week. Come back and check us out next time, where we'll be talking more about dreams.
Pleasant dreams,
See ya.
people. All right.
The watchman replies, "Morning is coming, but night will soon return."